All right. Oh.
All right, we are live. Guys, welcome to the Winter Harris Show. I'm your host, Winter Harris, and I am live again tonight with a special guest that's been with us before. Bishop Antwain Jackson is joining the conversation, and we are so excited to have him. Last conversation was not not short of irritating, if that's what you want to call it.
Right.
But goodness, I'm so excited because what happened is that we got so caught up in the conversation that we did not, we didn't get through to the whole topic. So we are continuing our conversation about being a godly leader. And so, goodness, we talked about so much good stuff the last time that I was excited that we could have you back, because I really wanted to talk about our main topic, which was what was the characteristics of a godly leader. And I'm telling you, I just actually shared the video that we did with a friend of mine, because I was like, you need to listen to this, because you said something about a man being committed to his insecurity. And I was like, listen, he set the captives free on that comment. So I shared it with her, and so we're going to continue in that vein. But before we started, I want you to introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are and how we can connect with you online and just what you have going on, and then we'll get into the discussion.
Sure. Well, again, Winter, thank you so much for allowing me to be on your program. I don't take it for granted that you've given me the opportunity to share my crazy thoughts with your followers. So thank you so much for that. For you all that may not know me, my name is Bishop Antwain Jackson, and I'm the pastor of the Equation Church in St. Louis, Missouri. And I also have a parachurch ministry called Antwain Jackson Ministries, and that's where I focus on leadership development and personal development, helping people really kind of bridge the gap with their spirituality and their practical life. I've been pastoring Equation Church for 11 years. Single dad, raising my 14-year-old daughter, really just enjoying my life. Have an early morning flight in the morning, doing some leadership development work. Like, it's a privilege, man, to use my life to help people. That's
awesome. Listen, 11 years. Now, I think because I'm a little bit of an old soul mixed with a little millennial vibe. You don't seem old enough to be pastoring a church for 11 years.
Look, I feel like Jesus grabbed me at the grave, at the cradle.
Listen,
he was like, look, man, if I don't get this boy early.
Listen, I can't relate. I'm born and raised. Dad was pastors, mom was pastors, and I'm telling you, people really don't understand. You're really kind of put to work from knee high to a grasshopper. Like, that's what it is. There ain't no other options.
That's right.
It is what it is, and you just kind of come in, with getting your hands dirty. So it's a great training ground. I tell people all the time. People ask me, like, how do you know how to do all this stuff? And I said, a lot of it is because I grew up in church and being put to work. You kind of learn those things growing up. So thank you for sharing. So you're in St. Louis. You've been pastor for 11 years. You're a single dad. Were you married before?
I was.
Yes. Okay,
I was
married.
Yeah. Divorced. I'm a divorced pastor. So
you a demon.
That's right. Right. Should be serving the Lord,
Yeah.
That's crazy.
We all have a story, and I want to mention that because sometimes people have this misconception that, and even for singles, and I'm not saying if you're singles you can't have a relationship ministry, but sometimes people feel like, where do you get the right to speak on relationships? And so I actually wanted to highlight that you've been married before, because I tell people all the time, as a person who's been married before, and now I'm divorced as well, I can speak to absolutely every single relationship phase that a person goes through. Absolutely. I have been there, walked through it. I can give you the 411 from a really real standpoint, because I have not only just witnessed it, I've experienced it. And so I just wanted to put that out there, not to showcase your business, but to say you were qualified to be on this broadcast and speak to relationships because you've walked through the phase and now you're single again. But we're talking about being a godly leader. And I'm telling you, in this day and age where there's a lot of boss women, we have our own money, we make our own money. You know, a lot of us are homeowners, business owners, especially with African American women. We're the fastest growing demographic for entrepreneurs, and we are excelling at it at a crazy, crazy rate. So much so, it is really changing the economic narrative. When it comes to a man being the provider, it's not necessarily a requirement anymore because women are able to make their own money. And so there's this huge gap though, because we have these women that are making this money, but they're still single. And they're saying, I'm not going to submit to no man and this, that, and the other. And, you know, where do we find balance? And what would you say to that woman who has her own, but is still looking for a godly lead her?
Yeah, well, what I would say is just don't let the narrative make your heart close toward the realities that we all desire companionship.
Yes.
I think that for some odd reason, we think that independence in certain ways we'll lose that when we get with somebody that either shares like mission or maybe makes more money or has a career that may not gel with yours. Like, and I try to tell people all the time, like, I don't think that you will lose your independence when you are aware of who you are.
Right.
I think when you have a level of awareness, what it does, I think it just helps you choose better.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, awareness will make you not settle so fast.
Okay.
And I found that when people don't have awareness, that's when they settle very fast. But I think we all desire companionship, and I think that's a good desire to have, and that's okay to do it. Just take your time in vetting. Take your time in getting to know somebody so that you don't choose wrong because you chose too fast.
And I think a lot of us are guilty of that. I've actually been guilty of that. I consider myself a hopeless romantic. So I immediately fly to the sky, honey. As soon as I feel like I really, am into someone, I am thinking extremely forward. But that has not fared well. And it has taught me to learn how to slow down and not be so rushed in moving a relationship along, because what we find is that as we rush it, we're missing those cues that a person may be a Christian. I'm not saying he's not a Christian just because he's not a leader. He may love the Lord, but he's not a leader. So how can we help people, or women in particular, identify, like, what am I looking for then? Like, what does a godly leader look like? Like, what is the main thing you can say that a woman needs to look for?
Well, I think we kind of jumped into this conversation the last time, but I think the thing we should be assessing is character. I believe that dating is when you're gathering data.
Come on.
Again, dating is when you're gathering data. And so when you really start to understand how a person's, the foundation of their life is, how they live, how they manage themselves, how they manage their relationships with others, how they manage their money. Yes. And understand, this isn't me talking about perfection, because I think every time we talk about the conversation of character, we all of a sudden start miscarrying to behavior. And I'm saying that's a part of it. Yes, behavior is a part of it. But I think we have to also get to know a person enough through communication to understand their mentality.
Yes.
Because if you can really see how they come to their conclusion.
Yes.
Like, how did you come to your conclusion about that? Or I just noticed that, that there are some things that when we're talking through specific areas, maybe finances, maybe sexuality, we hit an area or a pocket where it seems to get tense. Yes. I think those are the times where we have to kind of vet where a person truly is, where a man truly is.
Yes.
And so assessing character is something that I think takes time and it takes process. And so I think that's through communication.
So it's so funny that you talk about character. I don't think we realize how often we miss assessing character in a person when we're dating them. And sometimes we actually don't have a very solid understanding of what character actually is. We think good character is somebody being nice. We think somebody having good character is someone being polite or having manners, or, you know, maybe treating their elders well and opening doors. No. That is not character. Define character for the people. For the people who
character.
Break it down for the people.
Okay, character number one starts with values. Because how do you assess what a person's, their character truly is if you don't understand what they value, right? And so oftentimes if you see that a person does not value a relationship with God, then you will automatically see how they value the world because it colors their worldview.
Come on.
Right? And so values are important. I think also understanding the way that a person has processed through the difficulties and the pain of their life. Because character kind of comes from this idea of the statue. You understand that statues are beat into shape, formed into shape, pressed into shape with fire, ice, cold, all of it until it's in shape. And then when it gets in shape, you can sit it outside, sit it in the sun, sit it in the ocean, and it doesn't change. So what have been the impressions on that person's life that has impacted them? What are the good things? What are the bad things? What are the traumas? What are the things that have happened in their life that have shaped them? Whose hands have been on their life? Right? Like, so if their mom's hands haven't been on their life, if their dad's hands haven't been on their life, if they've had this idea in life where they're self-made, nobody has ever had an ability to kind of speak into their life and their forming and their shaping, then those would be things that I would assess. So character starts with values and then watching how a person is formed. Asking those questions like, how did you get here? Like, tell me, who are you?
Come on.
You know? And oftentimes, because we're always going to bring our representative first. We're always going to bring our representative first because we don't want you to think bad of us. So we don't want to be rejected, which is normal. But that's why I think over time, through conversation, strategic conversation, the ability to ask great questions, to pull out of a person where they truly are.
And so you bring up so many good points. My mind is spinning, but I'm telling you, it's just crazy when you talk about how a person is formed, how they're shaped, who has had their hands on their life. And it is very evident. It's not always very evident in general interaction, but it is certainly evident in conflict and how a person resolves and reacts in conflict. And sometimes, because I think a lot of things we're not taught to do well is conflict. We don't do conflict very well. A lot of us tend to run from it, shy away from it. You'll get people that are very aggressive in it, or they're very, they have a huge objection to it. And so they run from it. But the good thing about conflict is that it shows you a lot about a person's character, how they respond, because if they haven't had a huge shaping of accountability, what I typically find is that those people are very manipulative when in conflict because they don't want to be wrong. They don't see where they may have gone wrong. Also, shaping who, and I've been saying this is just a theme. Change your environment. Who is in their environment? That is huge with character. I always, don't judge me, but I literally look to see how many men a man has around him. To me, that is very indicative of a man's character. Because I typically find that a man who has mostly female friends lacks in accountability and his character is lacking in some way. That has really been my experience. Because let's just be real. Men are called to lead. So oftentimes when a man is typically surrounded by a lot of women, it is how he's used to getting his way because he can typically manipulate that pool because he's typically the strongest person in that environment. If a man submits to other men, you understand that he not only has the ability to lead, but he has the ability to be held accountable. And so that typically is indicative of a man who has pretty solid character. Pretty much every man that I've met that has solid character has a solid group of male friends in his life. And I mean solid, I mean they can call him up and call him out. That is huge to me.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, you're good. I think you're right. I think that's why there's a struggle to really have this prototype with what a good leader looks like, because you don't have many.
Yes.
Right? The scripture even speaks to the fact that you don't even have many fathers. Right?
Come on.
So the reality is we're struggling and we're having a crisis of definition.
Yes.
Because we don't really truly know who's the prototype. What, the church used to be that place because you usually had a male pastor or strong male figures, deacons, trustees. Yeah, I know the church isn't, the institution has had its problems. Yes. But I'm saying there were structures of men and deacons and men's fellowship and stuff like that gave men some sense of community. But we're in a day now where you don't even really have many men besides the pastor and a few other brothers in the church that's really there.
Yes.
So I think we're really in a crisis right now. I'm trying to identify what it really looks like to be a godly man.
Yes.
In a world that throws everything at you in media now.
Yes. No, I don't disagree. There is an identity crisis as it relates to being a godly leader, because there's just a lack of example. There really is. And so unfortunately, with that lack of the example, you get a skewed view of what actually a godly leader is. And I'm not saying that a man that has, maternal or female influence is any less than a man, but there is a certain amount of, the scripture that says iron sharpens iron. There is a certain amount of sharpening that a man provides to another man that a woman cannot accomplish. It just doesn't work that way. There's a certain amount. I always tell women, stop saying I can't have women as friends, because again, you're revealing a part of your character that's missing sharpening. I promise you. And every woman that has said that, she is missing and lacking something that she needs from another woman, because we have an ability as women to hold each other accountable in a way that a man cannot. So we don't see that played out and portrayed, and it's unfortunate because I agree with you, there is a crisis happening there. And let's just be honest, the women in the church outnumber the men by a landslide. So when you talk about trying to find a husband,
oh my.
Listen, we on a wing and a prayer and a string of a weave right now. Like, it just ain't that many.
Wait on the Lord, I say. Yo, I mean, it's the truth. It's the truth. I wish we could baptize the church with more men, but I don't want to go off the deep end by saying this.
Oh,
but
I'm here for it.
Okay, so hear me out just for a second. All right, if this don't mean nothing, we can just throw it away. Throw it out. But I think one of the reasons why the institutional church struggles with attracting men is because we have made church about the service and not about a mission. Men connect to mission-oriented, goal-oriented. Hear me. Goal-oriented, mission-oriented lifestyle. That's a man. If I'm gonna play a video game, mission-oriented, goal-oriented. If I'm gonna chase a woman, it's mission-oriented, it's goal-oriented. The church, the institutional church, I believe, has accepted this idea that church is a service, and I think that's why men don't attract to it, because oftentimes it really does appeal to the feminine nature.
Yeah.
Blow kisses to Jesus. Give him a big hug. Shout every 5 minutes. It's like, bruh, I don't have rhythm. I'm sorry. If my blessing is predicated on me shouting, I'm going to miss my blessing. I'm going to miss my whole blessing. I'm not blowing a kiss to Jesus. I'm a man. I'm not doing it. So I think that's why we're maybe having a struggle with it. The whole ecosystem of it.
Yes.
Because the way that the institutional church has accepted a brand of the faith that I don't believe is really in alignment with our mission anyway.
Mm. I think that is a valid, and it is a great point. And again, I mean, look at the demographic. I think where you see a strong mission that's geared towards men is where you see the churches have the strongest attendance for men. So I don't think you're off. I don't think you're wrong. Okay. And I do feel like, again, you know, I've been saying this, and some people have called me critical. It's not that I mean to be critical of the church, but I said, you know, at some point, we've got to reevaluate the way we do church if we really want to attract people and win souls. The goal is to win souls. How do we do that? How do you become attractive in a way that still speaks the truth in love, doesn't water down the word, but still is relevant? And there's a lack of relevance. We want to be relevant to the things of this world. The goal is to remain relevant in the things of God, but still remain relevant in a way that attracts people to a church that does the word and lives the word. And I do think we probably do need to reevaluate how we minister towards men, because we need them. Our churches are suffering because there is a lack of men in the church. So mission, listen, anything that is doing something, men are doers. That's what they do. So give them something to do that caters to that doing in them. I think you would see a huge increase in church. And I think too, I think we as women have to become more supportive and allowing men to have their place in church. I think there is a huge power struggle now because we see so many women that are, you know, coming out the gate, you know, 0 to 100. We're preaching, we're teaching, we're apostles, we're prophets, we're pastors, we business owners, we doing it all. Listen, but again, to still carve out that space and say, you know, regardless, and I say this all the time, you know, even as a mompreneur, if you will, as a businesswoman, I'm extremely educated. At the end of the day, though, I don't want to come home and leave my house. I want to have a man that covers my home and is the leader of my home, and I'm willing to submit under that leadership if he's a godly leader. And I'm telling you, that's not my heart's desire. So I try to be very vocal in providing that balance. Yes, you can, you know, be on fire for the Lord and pursue leadership and pursue ministry and pursue entrepreneurship. But again, there is a place for a godly leader in your life. You got to create the space, though. And I think sometimes we don't create the space.
I'm glad we're having this conversation, because I think it's robust in the way, because I think we need to also revisit the social structure, right? Because if we don't revisit the social structure, then what we will do is we'll point at the church, right? So like, we'll point at the church, like, okay, the church needs to fix it, when it was like, but your mom and dad never taught you that. Right? So it's like, your mom and dad, you didn't have that social structure at home that really taught you, like, I correct me if I'm wrong, but women are talked to from the age that they're girls about being a wife and being a mom and all of that. That's not the conversation that's had with a man about being a good husband and being a dad. No, it's about, what is your career? What are you going to be when you grow up? That's the number one question you hear boys ask. What are you going to be when you grow up? Not about who you're going to be responsible for. So in the social engineering, I believe that there needs to be a shifting back towards the conversation in our home. Like, yo, we need to breathe. I think we're getting the fruit of the seeds that have been sown at home.
Come on.
Like, that's just my honest opinion. Look, I am an apologist for the church. I am not saying that the church is perfect by any means.
No,
I am not stretching that. But I do believe that it is very easy for people to say, well, the church should teach it, the church should do it. And it's like, really? I think we need to be pointing back at your mom and your dad. And we need to be having conversations about, you know, like spending time with your kids and training your sons to be respectful and training them how to be men of character. And,
Absolutely.
And so if we don't start, I think, through re-engineering the social structure, I think we will continue to have this fruit.
No, I don't think you're wrong. And I think too, it's almost like, I tell parents all the time, I said, you know, your kids are at school as much as you're at a job. That's a long time for them to be influenced by things that you may not want them influenced by, and you have no control over it because that's where they spend most of their time. So again, what are you doing to counteract those seeds and those deposits that are being made that you can't control? What are you doing outside of that? And unfortunately, for many of us, we're guilty of just coming home because we're exhausted from the day, letting them sit in front of a TV, play video games, and there's not enough of our deposits put in them to counteract the other deposits. They go to church 1, maybe 2 times a week, maybe because Bible study is not even huge anymore. So
that's
maybe once, twice a week. That's not enough responsibility to give to the church when really your kids are at school or at home 95% of their lives. Like, we got to take more responsibility as parents. And again, this is a conversation, you know, I'm actually having with my kids now. My son is 16. He's able to date. He finally got that clearance. But we have real conversations. I actually was telling a guy, we were having this conversation back and forth, and he was saying, well, men only play with women that allow, you know, them to be played with. Like, if a woman allows it, then that's what a man is going to do. And I said, I highly disagree with that, because I actually teach my son that regardless of whether or not a woman has respect for herself, he is to show her respect and give her the respect that she doesn't even know that she should have for herself. That is on him. He has the ability to lead decisions and lead a relationship. So if he says, we're not having sex, we're not doing this, he has the ability to control that situation. He doesn't have to do what she allows just because she allows it. He can actually be a leader in that situation and create the narrative that actually, you know, shows her respect when maybe other men or boys wouldn't show her respect. I said, so I disagree. Why are we giving people the pass? But I said, you know what? That's a lack of home training. Somebody told you that that was okay, or somebody didn't tell you that that was not okay. But I highly disagree with that thought process. That's just me.
I totally disagree with that, because it paints the narrative that all men are predators. And I think that is one of the things that we're going to have to deal with in the social structure and even in media, because it's a narrative. Now hear me. I think that's why we're having this conversation, because it's a narrative that I think needs to be destroyed with truth.
Yes.
When you're having a teenager that's exploring their sexuality and they've not been taught about it, what are you going to do?
Yes.
You're going to explore, right? So you've not been taught how to manage your emotions, your feelings. You don't know any of this stuff.
Right.
So because there's not even been any conversation about this, you're going to experiment.
Yes.
That's what happens. So I think, man, this world, it has really painted this narrative that I think we need to pull that stronghold down.
Absolutely.
Like, we really do. Because it's like, man, I know very good men. So let me tell you this. I know very good men. I know very good men that are single. I know very good men that are husbands, and they're faithful.
And the lady said, where they at? You gonna drop their names in the comments? You gonna tag them?
Yeah, we'll drop it. We'll drop them in there. So
I'm trying to help y'all, ladies. He said he knew some that was single. I'm trying to think of y'all.
Really, really, really good men. But you know, the thing that I have found though, that is oftentimes when you're dealing with certain women, okay, because I want to paint this picture, but when you're dealing with certain women, they have expectations that either a man has not even, didn't even know, or has never seen, right? So oftentimes you don't feel like the relationship is even mutual.
Come on.
Because I'm so busy trying to chase you to figure out if I'm doing it right or not doing it right, that oftentimes you never got my heart. And I'm just saying this to women, like I'm saying this to you as a man. Sometimes women, you have to be very careful that you don't have these expectations so high that you never win his heart either.
Come on. That you listen, you trying to set the captives free tonight.
I'm trying to set him free, because you're wondering why he's looking. Because it's not necessarily about him just It's not necessarily about him getting his sexuality off. He's looking for a place to rest his head as well.
Come on.
But if he's done all of the chasing and there's never been that look, not just being a good wife. I don't want you to be a good wife because you want to be a good wife. I want you to be a good woman to me.
Yes.
For me. Not for what I do, but for who I am.
Yes.
So I think that those are some of the narratives that we need to
listen,
really talk about.
This is so good, but let me tell you, a lot of that challenge is because there are so many single parent households, and a woman doesn't know what that looks like. She really doesn't. She doesn't know what it looks like to honor a man. She doesn't know what it looks like to really seek after his heart and understand his heart. I tell women this all the time because I get so many women that chase after men with platforms. And I said, you're chasing after these platforms, but you literally don't have the capacity to sustain this platform. Not just the platform, but the man that's on the platform. It's not even about the platform. And I said, my parents were married for 27 years, and while they divorced, I said I had 27 years of an example of what a marriage looked like. So I was already well established into adulthood where I understood what it looked like to have a give and take. But because my dad was a pastor, I also saw him as a man. And so I tell women, I said, a man is a man way before he's ever a title. So we are often called to a platform, but that's not what God calls us to. He calls us to the man. So if you cannot support the man in the very essence of who he is, you're not called to his platform. Go have a seat.
Preach here.
That's just me.
This woman an offering.
That's just my thought process. We gotta. It's the way it is, especially in church. Oh, we want him to be a pastor. We want him to be, an apostle. We chasing after being a first lady. I mean, if a man mentions that he is a pastor, I'm telling you, he got 11 options from jump. I know you do. 11 options because they want the platform, but the platform is a small percentage of who that man is. A small percentage. And a lot of times, I think that's why we find so many of these high-profile marriages that don't last, because I'm telling you, the woman fell in love with the platform, but when the platform ran out, she didn't fall in love with the person. And so now we're still dealing with a very real person. And I'm sorry, it's not enough to love a platform. You got to love the man. You really got to love the man, because once that platform is gone, can you still minister to that man as a man? I saw my mom minister to my dad more so as a man than a preacher. My dad had being a preacher on lock, I'm going to be honest, because gifts come without repentance. So that is something they do very well. But it was the man, it was the brokenness that he was still healing from and dealing with that she had to minister to. So can you minister to that man? I just get sick of, but y'all go ahead, chase these platforms.
I'm trying to tell you,
y'all run with it.
Don't do it. Yeah, you're married to a person, and I think that, man, I have so much going on in my head right now. That's why I kind of feel like I'm all over the place. I feel like I have guns blazing like all over my head with this conversation, because I feel like, number one, the church needs to deal with our marriage idol, our worship of marriage, because we're pushing people down the aisle too quick. We're making it as if something is wrong with them because they're not married.
Absolutely.
How did your whole Savior, Jesus, 33 years old, get out of here unmarried?
Come on.
And people say, well, he's married to the church. Well, that's actually a picture.
Right.
That's trying to show you the relation. He's not married to the. Okay, I'm not gonna go. But it shows us a picture of the relationship.
Right.
But so Jesus, 33, gets out of here unmarried, and he was a Jew, by the way. So I don't know how he got past bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, where his marriages were arranged. I don't. I'm still trying to figure that part out. But I'm saying, I think we worship marriage.
We do.
And I think that is one of the driving issues, because we, number one, we like the control of women. Right? So if we out here, we're going to talk that talk, right? So we like to control
the women. Saints, I'm just...
And we like to control what people do in their bedroom. Those two things. If we stay out of people's relationships and we stay out of people's bedrooms, I guarantee you the church will be mission oriented again. But we're so busy trying to modify people's behavior that we're not teaching them who they are.
Preach.
And if you teach them who they are, then their behavior will regulate.
Come on.
I don't eat dog food because I don't identify as a dog. So solving a behavior problem is getting people connected to their identity.
Come on.
That requires the time and the patience and the teaching. And it requires us not necessarily seeing change automatically to get people to a place of understanding who they are. That's real church.
Come on, and you're preaching, because let me tell you, this is why we still have pornography as high as it is. This is why we have infidelity as high as it is, because we say, you know what? Instead of fixing why you feel like you need to feed your flesh with porn, get married. Instead of fixing your identity, get married. Get married. Get married to fix that. Get married to fix. No. You have a problem before you get married. I consider marriage an illuminator. It will highlight, it will illuminate whatever issue you have. And if you have it before marriage, you go have it afterwards, even at a greater level.
Come on.
Because you're now inviting a whole different person that can really hold your feet to the fire in some things where you could have done what you did on the slide, nobody knew about it. Now it can be found out. Now it can be discussed and discovered. Right. And I'm telling you, we think marriage is the solution. We need to quit using marriage as the solution to a problem and fix the problem. Deal with the problem. Deal with the fact that a person may not know who they are. Yeah. Deal with the fact that a person may need to deal with some generational curses. See, we don't like to talk about stuff like that now. You know, and I'm going to be very careful when I say this, because I mean no harm, because my sister's a therapist and I love her and she's amazing at what she does. There needs to be a balance. The church needs to address mental health, but the church cannot use mental health to address spiritual issues. We still serve a very real enemy. There are still things like demons that need to be cast out. There are things like deliverance sessions that still need to take place because people need to be delivered. I'm sorry, I don't care how many therapy sessions you go to. If you need to be delivered and set free from something, your therapist ain't gonna be able to fix that. That's between you and the blood of the Lamb that can get you cleansed from them issues. That's just me. So I feel like it's almost like we are, either we're all in or we're all out with things, right? There's no balance. I feel like the church lacks real balance. And we'll say the church needs to deal with mental health, but then we'll take an all mental health approach instead of realizing that there needs to be balance. And then even with marriage, you know, instead of finding that balance, everybody just needs to get married. No, where's the balance?
It is literally, this is why I love the name of my church, the Equation Church. You can't get the four without both twos.
Come on.
You need both. You know what I'm saying? And it's our idolization. You see what I'm saying? It's our idolization of a way. Yeah. It's our idolization of a revelation. Yeah. It's our idolization with problems that causes us to think that there's only one way to handle this stuff. Jesus says he is the way that leads to the truth. He is the life. You see what I'm saying? And so I think it's this reality of us understanding that he gives us everything as it pertains to life and godliness.
Yes.
So he teaches us who we are. And through teaching us who we are, through deliverance, through teaching and instruction, and then us constantly taking our lives through counseling, not just when there's trauma.
Come on.
Right? Because we don't believe in maintenance. And that's where I think a lot of our issues is, because we're not seeing the underlining thread of maintenance.
Yes.
We've born in sin, shaping iniquity. So we're coming out of trauma and coming out of problems, coming into health. Now the thing is maintaining the health.
Yes.
Being saved, to be delivered, to be brought from one place to be taken to another.
Go on.
I'm telling you, man, I think that there's a great opportunity. I think through media, through conversations like this, we have a great opportunity to tell people that, hey, you know what, maybe you've went through deliverance, but you're still struggling. It doesn't mean you're delivered. Maybe go to counseling and talk that out.
Yes.
Well, maybe you're the person that's been through counseling and you still feel like something deep and dark is on you. You can't get free. Go to deliverance. Like we need to realize that when Jesus says he's the answer, that doesn't mean just say, just go to church. That's not what he's saying. He's saying that he's the light. He's the revelation of the answer that we need in our lives.
Come on, preach.
We got to be proficient, man. I think that's what we're struggling with.
Yes.
We're struggling with proficiency.
We are very reactive. I said the church is in a reactive state instead of a proactive state. And everybody knows that when you're proactive, you have a far better chance of success than when you're reactive. We got to get out of reacting to everything. Marriage is a reaction. Therapy is a reaction. Deliverance is really a reaction. None of these things occur until something happens. But why does something have to happen for you to get something done? Like, be proactive. We got to be more proactive, but the way that we achieve that, I agree, is through that balance. And this is where I believe that we can't just cultivate everyone to be ministers and pastors and stuff like that. Like, we really got to allow people to really identify with who God created them to be. That's what I'm trying to say. So we have the body functioning as a body, and you have those arms and those legs, and people that are called to be, therapists, and people that are called to be, youth ministers, and people that are called to be teachers, because we need people in every single sector. So we have godly influences and godly examples. So when these things arise, we have a godly voice that's able to rise up and speak the truth when it needs to be spoken. But we want everybody to be a bishop. We want everybody to be a pastor. We want everybody's a marketplace minister now. Like, I'm thinking, what in the world are we going to be who God called us to be?
That's why I think the church, we need to get delivered from churchianity.
Yes.
Because I think all of what you're saying is wrapped in the mission of the church. For God so loved the world.
Come on.
The systems, cosmos.
Yes.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son.
Yes.
And whosoever believeth in him shall not perish. For he did not send his son into the world to condemn the world.
Yes.
But that the world through him might be saved. Brought from one place to another. Right? Redeemed.
Yes.
I think that oftentimes I think part of why we're having these problems is because we've got internally focused. We're not focused on what we're called to do and who we're called to be in the earth.
Yes.
And when we realize that we're called to be light in darkness, we're called to be salt in the earth, and we realize that our mission is to impact, influence, and change the world for God, it'll give us it'll give us our head back.
Yes.
We've lost our head. We've lost our focus. We've lost our vision. We've lost our ability to think because we've made spirituality emotionalism.
Come on.
And it's robbed us of the intellectual ideas we need that really impact our life.
Come on.
Not just the shout at church, but the mentality you need to impact your marketplace, to impact your workplace, to impact your marriage. Absolutely. You need a certain way of thinking to make change like that.
Come on.
Shouting ain't gonna do it.
Come on. Revelation revolutionizes our thought process.
Come on.
And that is literally where we struggle, because again, I just go back to so much that we've said, but the church really, no, we don't think outside our four walls. We're so concerned with the building fund that, ain't grown in 30 years that we're missing a real opportunity to minister and reach people that need to be reached. So again, I think you're spot on, and it's so true. We've got to get back to what we're called to do. And we don't do that creating robots. We don't do that. Oh, go ahead. No,
I was just going to say this. You know how Satan wins? He wins with deception, and he gets us focused on doing good things, not the right things.
Come on.
See, the Bible, nowhere does the Bible call Satan omnipresent. So he's not everywhere.
Nope.
Right? So I think oftentimes, his ability to control the narrative through media causes us we're so distracted that we're not even focused on what our mission is.
Goodness.
Like, I think he's had the biggest vacation since he's been in the earth, because the church hasn't really been a threat. We ain't been a threat. The light bulb ain't came on yet. Like the you know what I'm saying? Like, what I'm about to run in here now because I feel God. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I know what I'm called to do with my life. I'm not confused about why I'm in the earth. I know that God put me in the earth at the time he put me in the earth, because there's something that he wants me to do with my life.
And there's not enough of that. There's not enough of that I was actually saying, like, when I accepted the call to ministry, that's one of the things I'm consistently reminded of is I'm not called to minister like any other minister. I am unique. I'm not changing. God made me a certain way for a reason. I'm not going to preach like anybody else. I convey the word how God tells me to convey it. But I know I'm called to be a disruptor. I understand that I'm not called to do church like it's used to being done, because there needs to be a disruption in the church. And so I consider myself a kingdom disruptor. I am very clear on that. And this is why I tell people, when you come to my page, I don't know what you're going to get, because I am a disruptor on Facebook. It just depends on how the mood hits me and what God is leading me to speak. But when I'm clear on that, I am my most on fire. Like I'm telling you, I said, I completely understand the scripture when he said, it's like fire shut up in my bones. Listen, I cannot contain sometimes how I feel when I know that I'm walking in the realm that God has called me to walk into, because I am secure and I'm certain and I'm sure in that space. But we don't have enough people in the church that are moving in a place of certainty. And so therefore, when there's not certainty, there's insecurity. And we can't change nobody being insecure. I tell people all the time, I do not understand how we feel like we are going to convince an unconvinced world of a God that we are not even convinced ourselves that we believe in.
Come on, somebody. That's right. You know, the goal of God was never religion, but rulership through relationship.
Come on.
Right? I think that the greatest deception that the church will ever have to deal with is dealing with the spirit of religion. I think that religion has watered down our faith to emotional experiences and this desire to want to go to heaven without impacting earth. I truly believe that if we don't deal with that deception, we won't be able to change our families. We won't impact men making a difference.
No.
We won't be able to do the things that God has called us to do in the earth. The wealth of the wicked will never transfer to us because we don't understand our mandate and our mission.
Come on.
And I'm just like you. Like when the light bulb came on for me, my divorce was because I was so busy trying to serve the church that I didn't know how to be married, because I thought that if I just served the Lord, then the Lord was going to take care of my marriage. That's literally what I thought. I thought, my pastor used to say this all the time, and there are a couple of things he said that we don't agree on, and we're fine. Like, I love him, but he used to say, if you take care of God's house, God will take care of your house. And I found out that's a fallacy. No, I got to take care of God's house, and I got to take care of my house.
Yes.
And so what I found was my marriage really dissolved because of neglect, because I was doing something good, but it wasn't right.
Come on.
I was deceived to think that if I was serving at the church every time the church was open, I was paying my tithes in the negative.
Come on.
Right? We fat as all get out, eating McDonald's because we had church every day, eating chicken every time after church. Then how in the world am I ever going to make an impact on the family structure if I'm never home to do it?
Okay. You preaching.
So when the light bulb came on to me, that the impact that religious thinking had on my life and my lifestyle, that's when the bulb came on for me about seeing the deception in the teaching.
Yes.
Because we're telling people to do something that's right from moralism, but not from identity.
And you know what, Bishop, I'm going back to the conversation we had before, because let me tell you, we were just talking about that. When we say that we're actually teaching and preaching something that's not even scripture. The Bible talks about a man who rules his house well. If he does not rule his house well, he's actually not fit to rule in the kingdom of God.
That's
so
right.
We're actually teaching it backwards. And again, this is where I tell people all the time, we got to be careful about what we are actually calling scripture that's actually not even scripture. I had a woman argue me up and down. I'll never forget this. I won't say who she was. But she kept telling me, well, God said in his word that we're all going to be millionaires. And I said, where did you get that from? She said, it's in the Bible. That's what my pastor said. It's in the Bible. We're all going to be millionaires. I said, you mean to tell me the same word that says the poor you will have with you always says that everybody's going to be a millionaire? You mean to tell me that God cares any less about those people that are poor and that may never have $1 million in their life? The Bible is clear that the poor we will have with us always. But we're all going to be millionaires. And she told me it was scripture. By the time I got down breaking down that 6-piece chicken nugget meal, I was like, I'm going to need you to go back to your pastor and tell him to stop preaching that. Because it's wrong. It's wrong. But again, we have adopted a mentality of cliches in the church that are not accurate and they're not biblical. But you know what? The Bible says we are responsible for searching out our own soul salvation. So we need to be responsible for reading our word. The problem is that we want to use the pastor as a replacement for doing our own walk on our own and reading on our own. So a lot we're able to be deceived and we perish for lack of knowledge because we ain't read it ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Because the appetite is emotionalism.
Yes. And a roll on the floor.
Yeah. I say this to pastors all the time, and this is something that I'm really personally thinking through. So I'll look back on this video 20 years from now and be like, yeah, I said it 20 years ago, and I was processing it then.
Okay.
I think we do have to reform the institution of the church, because I believe that we are reinforcing what we don't want through our excessive approach on trying to perfect our experiences.
Yes.
Without teaching people their responsibility for it.
Come on.
So it's almost as if we're trying to find ways to make it bigger, better, faster, get more people in, all of that stuff, right? So we're perfecting the experience, but we're not teaching people the responsibility that they are the church, the ecclesia, the out from the kaleo to call, right?
Yes.
And so nobody really is carrying the responsibility for it on their shoulders anymore.
Yep.
So they're putting it on the service.
Yes.
So then that's when they start praying, talking about God do miracles in the service. And now you got these little soldiers walking around talking about his intercession. When it's like, bro, you ain't laid hands on nobody throughout the week. But you want to come in here and expect for me to turn tricks and miracles. When you don't walk past your coworker that you ain't even laid your hands on. These signs shall follow them that believe.
Come on.
So I think that's where I'm asking God, like, where do we stop the bus?
Yeah.
Are you going to give us a place and a space where we can stop the bus? And we can have a conversation like the Council of Nicaea where we're going, look, we need to recenter this.
Yes.
And then you say, what are we doing? Who are we? And what's our message to the world?
Yes. This is so good and it's so relevant. I was just saying this, like a month ago, that we have created experience addicts. And what we have done is that we come to church, we get our fix because we just want the experience, and the experience makes us feel good and we feel good. But, Monday hits and we're back to our same foolishness until we can just kind of cope through the week. We itching until we can get that fix again on a Sunday. And I said, the thing that we're not creating, because I was reading about the Damascus experience, and we say it's an experience, but really what Paul had was an encounter. And I said, we need to get better at encounters, because what an encounter does is changes that person's course of action, and it creates a continuous trail of actions that impact other people. Experiences don't do that. Experiences create an appetite for experiences. An encounter creates an appetite for impact. That is the difference in church.
Look, Jesus even said it's a perverse generation that seeks for miracles. Jesus said it, right? So Jesus was very countercultural to a lot of the stuff that we hear.
Yes.
I say this all the time. I believe that one of the reasons why we don't see miracles in the church is because God is requiring miracles of the church.
Come on.
So he's not doing them there because really what he's requiring is for you to be the miracle.
Yes.
And when the church, when it's a cultural norm that we operate in our ability, in our identity to be the change in the world, then I believe that's when our experiences will start to mature and go to the next level, because we will all have an appetite for something that is greater and is supernatural. Not just the pastor wanting it, it's us as a people that have created a hunger and a thirst after that. And I think we always try to miscarry. It's kind of like revival. You know how we always miscarry to thinking that revival is doing what we used to do?
Yes.
It's like we always get to those points where we have an opportunity to take it to the next place and we miscarry.
Yep.
Because oftentimes we want God to do something in a building that he wants to do through a people.
Come on. Come on.
It's a people, man. We're on mission, man. And I just my heart longs for the day.
Yep.
When we can just quit talking about the size of our churches, and I just can't wait for the day when we're the church in the world.
Come on. And it's needed. The earth is crying out. I told people, the world is hungry for the church to step up. Like they really are hungry for the church to be the church. The church is the church's hindrance. It's not the world. It's not, other people. It's the church. Like we got to step up and be the church. But I think this goes back to our conversation that we were having. This is why the Lord is doing a transferring of a changing of the guards is happening, because he's got to move that traditional religious way of thinking out, so true revival can happen and we can see the true mission of the church erupt and really change and disrupt this world and the kingdom of darkness like we're called to. I'm telling you.
Can I suggest to somebody that's maybe watching this that church hurt was a detox program? That it was God detoxing them from a system that wasn't good enough anyway?
Come on.
I would just like to suggest that because God is the author and the finisher of our faith.
Come on.
I believe that God will stop us from being a part of something that does not bring him glory and bring you into the fullness of who you are, because he knows that the time is turning. Now, I could be, I'm for sure being prophetic right now, because the time is turning. Because and I'm not saying the replacements. This isn't the replacements or the plan B. This is not what I'm saying. These are the people that I believe that God has put the mantle on our shoulders to take the church into the world.
Come on.
And so what we're having to do is to watch a system fail.
Come on.
We got to watch it fall. You see what I'm saying? Like God ain't scratching his head. Let them have church. Let them shout and bump their heads and scrape their knees and be broke and depressed.
Let
them do it. Don't be mad at it. But be over here building simultaneously. So when God shifts influence, we ready to go.
Come on. We ready to go. We're ready to impact. I really hope you guys are soaking up this conversation. It's already 10:05. I don't even know how this happens. I don't know how this happens. This is such a good conversation. I could talk this all night. Like I honestly, I have just visions, and I see myself, talking about this and teaching this to other, ministry leaders, and just providing a different voice and perspective, because I'm one of those people. I wouldn't exactly call myself church hurt, but vehemently disgusted with religion. Like I abhor it. I think that's the best. I think that's the best word that I could come up with. I abhor religion. I don't like it. And I said I don't like it because it has really hindered people walking in the fullness of who God has actually called them to be. And it's unfortunate that, we have so many people walking around with that church hurt. But I always try to encourage those and say, you know what? I don't like church. I don't do church. I said, God is not that religion. You can't hold God to a religion of what people or what man wants to call God. That's not God. God is much more reliable and dependable than church religion. And so I'm just, my heart is for people to just really experience the people of God, not necessarily a church and a building, but experience the people of God, because we're full of love, we're full of grace, we're full of mission, we're full of purpose, and we understand that our kingdom focus is more important than a building fund. Our kingdom focus is more important than having the best worship team. Our kingdom focus, I actually tell people all the time, I posted a couple videos, maybe 3 now at this point. Not because I really want to, but more so, people would ask and I'm being obedient. But most people, I don't publicize the fact that I can sing. But I will share tonight, one of the reasons why I actually stopped is that I was actually the worship leader at a church. And the particular pastor at the time, it was a predominantly non-Black church, and I had great response there for a predominantly white church to accept this little Black worship leader was something. But the church was growing, and people were experiencing, to see what people would probably identify as redneck men crying and weeping and worshiping. That was different for them. But we had a change in leadership, and the pastor that came in said, I think she's great at worshiping, but we want someone that has musical training. And she has not had enough training. So they replaced me.
All right.
They replaced me, no kidding. They replaced me with the worship leader that had the musical training. I kid you not, the church is not even in operation today.
Wow. Your jeans weren't skinny enough?
It wasn't skinny enough.
You didn't have an acoustic guitar?
I did have an acoustic guitar. I was learning, but I only knew 3 chords. I did have, and then I tell people all the time. So that actually, I was hurt by that, because I'm like, if I don't know how to do anything else and know how to worship, I might not be Anita Baker. I might not be Tasha Cobbs, but I know how to worship, and I know how to usher in the presence of the Holy Spirit. And so I said, from that point forward, I quit singing. And I was just discouraged. I quit singing. And so a lot of people didn't even know that I could sing. And so I said, it hasn't been until recently that the Lord, I was telling a friend of mine, I said, God said he's going to give me my worship back. So people are asking me where I record these songs. I'm like, y'all, I'm going in on a little recording app on my phone, just worshiping God. I said, but it's amazing how we allow the institution of church to really even define what we see in other people as worthy or relevant to the things of God, because we have such an idea of what we think church should be like and how we should do church. And we have all these stipulations, and we've literally X'd out the Holy Spirit. He ain't really got no place. You got to ask our permission to be involved. But let me tell you, I believe God is changing that. I believe he's changing that. And I'm telling you, it's going to be, 2020 is going to be an amazing year. I really feel that.
Man, I just got done doing a series yesterday at our church called The Weird Ones, and really talking through just this idea of how God is using people, the ones that the church and religion has basically counted out, that heaven has endorsed. And that's been the lane of the series, trying to teach people that, you might not look like, talk like, act like what religion says is the industry standard, and that's because God's doing a new thing.
Yes.
And I think that this is why many people like you and I are being stirred. We're stirred again. And we don't know where this fire came from. But then it makes sense why the things that we went through, why they matter, because we will be relevant to the world, because we will have real world situations say, yes, I'm a divorced man.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a single dad. Yes, I've had to rebuild my life. I've had to rebuild my character. I've had to rebuild my reputation. We're able to have those real world conversations with people in a way where we're not trying to cram Jesus down their throat, but because they come to know us, they want to like, well, what was the source? Like, what changed you?
Yes.
Then that's why I'm able to lead them to a relationship.
Yes.
And I'm just excited for the future of what this looks like, because I really, truly believe that the church that we see today, I think in 20 years, it'll look so vastly different.
Yes.
Because I think we're going to invade the world in such a way that we're going to become relevant to culture. And we won't, and I don't think, number one, the world was not Jesus' biggest problem. He was sitting with sinners and publicans. That was never his problem. His problem were the Pharisees and the Sadducees, or the religious.
Yep.
Right? So I truly don't, anybody I interact with business CEOs and the man that owns the coffee house down the street, they have no problem with me loving Jesus.
Mm-mm.
Like, nobody rejects me because I love Jesus. I only have problem when it's dealing with religious folks.
Come on.
Straight up. That's just me being the honest to God truth, because I know how to have conversation with people and meet them where they are. It's only religious people that give me problems.
God, listen, they come to my page, they're going to be all in their feelings in 2 minutes flat, because
It's religious people, man, that closed-mindedness and this legalistic, and it's legalistic about the wrong stuff. You don't even know the law to be legalistic. You don't even study.
Listen.
You don't even study. And the only thing you know how to talk about is alcohol and sex. You don't know how to talk about nothing else.
You forgetting the gluttony, the pork, listen. Good
God. So it's like, man, we are, I think it's changing, and that's why I'm excited, because my hope is really set on the future.
Amen.
I believe we're getting ready to make a difference.
I'm excited. Listen, I get it every day. I wake up like, Lord, what is it today? Every day. Every day, I'm telling you. So thank you so much for being on here. Right? We probably can talk forever, especially about this topic. Because I'm telling you, it makes me feel some type of way, not a bad way, but I'm willing to challenge it. I'm willing to challenge it, and I know that's actually counterculture in the religious sector. Nobody challenges, right? And I was telling my mom, I said, "See, Mama, all of my talking back is paying off. Like, it was the Lord using my talking back days as training ground."
That's right. For what's going on now.
The Lord is now using my ability to challenge, because I was a very challenging child. I would challenge, and I was telling people, listen, at my mom will tell you 10, 11, 12, I was challenging people in third grade. I've had church members be like, I cannot stand her. She talks too much. And at 12, because I had questions, even then at 12, like, there were religious things I could not wrap my mind around. I didn't understand. It didn't make any sense to me. And so I'm like, why is we being quiet? Why are we asking no questions? So I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I know God made me that way for a reason. So there's a level of non-fear I have when it comes to combating religion. I can go toe to toe with that all day, and I got time all the time for that. That type of spirit breaks me in a special kind of way. And I don't want to say it to be condescending or rude, but in hopes that I can shift perspective. Because it is hindering people from really achieving the goodness that God has given us in His life, and through His Son and in the kingdom. And so we'll have you back. We still didn't to the whole topic. Next time we just gonna look at my mama on here. Mama, close your eyes. You ain't gotta have that face.
She behaving herself, Mama. She behaving herself.
Listen, that is so funny. We'll have you back. Next time we just go freestyle the discussion, because I feel like every time we sort of kind of have a topic,
right,
we go somewhere else.
We go in, right.
Listen, thank you so much for being on. Let people know how they can connect with you, and this video will actually go up on YouTube as well, because it's recorded. So I'll share the link with you. To maybe share out in your email or whatever, but we'll have that down. But please let us know how we can connect with you.
Well, you can find me on all social medias at Antwain Jackson, ANTWAIN Jackson, on all social media, and on my website at antwainjackson.org.
All right, you guys, we will get it dropped in the comments, and I'll pin it. But I will also get the link to the video posted. Antwain, thank you so much for being on. Always a pleasure, and never a dull moment. I get so much out of it. I actually always go back and watch all the lives, but I usually take notes when I go through, just something that always triggers me. But last live was good. This one was equally as good.
Good.
Look forward to having you back again.
Thanks.
And listen, guys, go support his ministry. Support his endeavors. He's got a lot of great things going on, and he's definitely a disruptor and an advocate for all things kingdom. So we want to make sure we get behind godly leaders that are doing their thing for the glory of God. So thank you so much. You guys have a great night, and we'll be back next week with a new guest. See you guys.
Have a good one.